smoothly.
Matt, we were 17 of 19 from the line tonight. Oh,
I mean, everything's going in tonight.
yeah. I mean, if we were not due for one, I don't know what else there is to say about it.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the high level. The ceiling is super high when
I
they're
mean, that's part of where my MVP vote comes from, though, because honestly, again, just like it's about who hits early. Obviously, Janai played a game for the ages, but who was hitting at the beginning of this game that absolutely put it out of reach? It was Jalen Williams.
of course, it's my guy. All right, I think I am ready.
Take us in,
Assuming
baby.
assuming we show up here in the live. The war report is live.
Of
Don't
course they
tell
are.
Jackson.
That was that who wanted us to join their network?
Yeah,
I think we should think about it, but that's a discussion for another day.
probably
If you're in
should.
the YouTube now, Pocket Watch, Canoe Man, if you're in there,
Yeah, we're our
we might
guys.
enter the transfer portal. We'll see what happens.
Pocket watch. Wiggle wiggle. Let's go. All right, you ready to start?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds to pop the links out. Or if you want to go now and just lead us in with all the info, I'll pop in when you're ready.
I will gladly lead us in. All right. Three, two. All right, everybody. Huge 40-point win. I'm trying to be like Jackson. 40-point win. Massive. A
Huge,
huge margin of victory.
huge.
Huge. Probably shouldn't make those jokes in 2024. Anyway, Auburn gets a great win over number 11 South Carolina, still undefeated at home in Neville Arena. And man, if you don't believe in college basketball, the value of home court, look no further than how Auburn played in Gainesville on Saturday and then how they played tonight. Great performance. The shots were falling, the offense was free flowing, the defense was great. South Carolina started out 9-4, took an early lead, hit I think 4 out of their first 5 shots, and then it was 46-19 the rest of the half. It reminded me a lot of it was more dramatic and earlier in the half, but being at the Auburn Indiana game in Atlanta, Auburn just boat raced them like for almost an entire half. It was amazing. Here to break it
And
down with me,
don't
Ben Young.
oh, who's already
Yeah,
trying to jump in because I got to say, Matt, don't discount this. Obviously, it was a great performance, but we talked about going into Florida last week. They were one of the better defensive teams in the SEC. They were definitely one of the top rebounding teams in the SEC. South Carolina was ahead of us. They were the number one scoring defense in the SEC coming into this game. And I think it's safe to say after a 40-point loss in which they gave up 100 piece, that they might no longer be in first place.
Yeah, I mean, we did what we did last week against Alabama, right? South Carolina was tied for first. We knocked them down, brought them back to our level. You get a tiebreaker over them. Big win, way to defend home court. And now Alabama's off this week in the midweek. We get our bye next week. So we
Which
are
makes us currently half a game.
half a game behind Alabama. So, not that Auburn fans need any excuse to root against Alabama the rest of the way in all their games, but that is kind of we gave up that controlling our own destiny thing when we fell a game behind them again, but still in the race. And with 6 games left in the regular season, I mean, this is about as good as you could ask for.
Wait, Matt, did I just hear you say we gave up control of our own destiny? You're finally admitting it. This is
No,
the hard part.
I
This
don't.
is why I
This
was in such a panic
this is
when we
not
lost winnable games.
this is not complicated. If you win all your games, do you win the league? That's what that means. We
If you
we
win all the games that you have left, yeah, sure, all right. But
that's what
listen,
that means.
there was some panic that was justified because again, if you think about that game against Mississippi State, that was a winnable game. That game in Tuscaloosa, man, was that a winnable game.
It was.
I we had some close opportunities that are going to make the last couple of weeks of this game stressful.
I gotta
But
I, I gotta pause. We're gonna get into MVP discussion, but shout
all
out
right,
to our shout out to our people. Pocket Watch, AU Bear, Farm Data, all in here. Always right on. We haven't even been very consistent this year with when we go live, and yet when we do, they're here. Um, Pocket
yeah,
Watch.
Canoe Bear and Pocket Watch were the only people that were here with me last week. I'd like to point that out. It
That's
takes a
right.
40-point win to get Matt Donaldson back on his own
Great
podcast.
supporters. Great supporters. I was a little busy.
We've also got AU Bear on the Reddit poll voting for MVP that we know we've seen a lot, and Ribs and Whiskey. Good to have you in the Reddit poll voting on MVP for us. It's going to be a tough discussion tonight, Matt.
It will. I was bringing up Pocket Watch to say he sat at Jalen's table at the donor dinner last year and said he's a great dude. Shocks no one. Pocket Watch. If you listen, to, you know this is my guy. He's not only a great basketball player, a great dude, and maybe that's where we start with the MVP discussion because Jalen was on a heater tonight. What
Well,
was
it's dangerous to start there. It's dangerous to start there because I think before we start there, we have to start with who started the game off for us. Who has been the straw that stirs the drink for the last 6 weeks coming back into the starting role? But my guy, Trey Donaldson. Now, Trey Donaldson didn't have a huge impact in the box score, but when you talk about the way the game started off, we saw him take a couple of shots early versus Florida that didn't go in. It sort of set the tone for the game. I feel like Trey Donaldson set the table for this game in a lot of ways. Driving inside hard, penetrating early, dishing some good assists. I believe he finished tonight with 0 turnovers,
he
which
did?
yes, he
Four
did.
assists,
Zero
zero turnovers.
turnovers to 4 assists,
Mhm.
1 of 1 from the free throw line, 5 of 8 from the field. He's finally taking some more shots in that PG1 spot that I personally have been begging for. Talk about Trey Donaldson's impact early on this game.
Yeah, Trey just he is a there's got to be better words for it, but he is just a steadying force on the floor. He's done it as a starter, he's done it as a backup. He is just so solid. He is finding his shots a little more. I think he's finding his flow of the offense. It feels like there's very rarely anything forced with him. And I think that's one of the nicest things you can say about a point guard on a team that is when it's clicking at a high level. If you have a guy like that who can get other people involved and add his uh, Ben, we've been on this since the beginning of the year. 22 assists to 5 for South
Ooh,
Carolina.
ooh, it's pretty basketball.
And by the way, Aiden Holloway, 3 assists, 0 turnovers as well in the backup minutes. So really great production. I'm glad you start with Trey. Trey has been seamless. He's been good on both spots, and I think that's the best thing you can say about a guy. Zep Jasper was able to do that, like a team guy. It doesn't matter if he comes off the bench. Doesn't matter if he starts. He's going to bring the same energy. But you can kind of feel Trey's confidence building as the season has gone on.
And then we got to talk about another guy who continues to accelerate through SEC play as a reliable role player. I don't think anybody's confused about who the best players on this team are. They're in our front court. But Chad Baker Mazara, man, what an upgrade as the three-player coming off the bench. He once again had double digits. He finished with 10 points, but he had his perfect night. 4 of 4
Mm-hmm.
from the floor, 2 of 2 from three-pointer. Now, sadly, he didn't draw any free throws tonight, no fouls, but he finished with 5 rebounds in those serious hustle plays and 3 assists. His passing tonight was a huge part of this game.
It was, and I mean, he led us in rebounds. And he continues at his height, 6'7", 6'8", to be a really even for not being huge. He's a good rebounder. He did have 3 turnovers that were pretty bad. We only had 7 as a team. He had 3 of them. But man, the spark he provides. You mentioned the passing, the scoring at all levels, hitting multiple threes. He's one of our 7 dudes on offense, and we need him to show up and continue to contribute. And I thought again, the story, Jalen and Janiyah get so much attention. There, to me, the correlation with this team is like how many of our dudes are scoring. Trey, Katie, Chad, all had really good nights. Denver quietly had a good night. Also played some point guard. We'll talk about that later. Just we need the depth of scoring. We can't have it be 1 or 2 or 3 guys. That's a flashback to last year, and that's not a recipe for winning, especially as these games get a little more intense. Obviously, all these guys play better at home, but I'm glad you pointed out Chad was good, and he almost drew a fist fight from somebody, which every game there's
We'll talk
something
about
weird that happens with him. It's funny.
Yeah, we could talk about the flow of the game a little bit later, but you mentioned Katie Johnson. Katie Johnson, once again, a spark plug. And we can't mention enough how Katie Johnson's hero ball this year is coming at all the right times. We're not seeing him shoot us out of games like we have in previous years, particularly last year when we were looking for a hero constantly. Katie Johnson, 2 of 3 from the floor tonight, 1 of 2 from three-pointer, and then hit all 4 of his free throws. a man after my own heart,
That's a
getting the
Jalen
hard
stat
points.
line. That's a Jalen stat line getting 9 points on 3 shots. Way to go, KD.
Yes, but he also had 2 rebounds and 1 assist, which I want to say is not so much a Jalen stat line because again, one of the things that we're used to seeing Jalen do is be that facilitator and do all the stuff that you don't see in the box score. Great passing, great rebounding,
Well,
but
that
Matt,
that's KD. Give us the plus minus on KD.
all right, I can I was going to say that for a little bit later, but Katie Johnson tonight, 39 points plus minus. No, 40. 40. I'm reading it
Plus
wrong. 40
40.
points plus 40. That's the difference in your ball game right there. Now, some of that
Plus
has to do with
40.
who Katie is around, but he also had some incredible steals tonight. He continues to be an energy glue guy. And again, just like we're talking about with last year's situation, we would so often see Katie shoot us out of a game, and he's just so much more patient this year. He's so much more trusting of his teammates, and that's the gel that is making this team go.
You said Dylan was number 2, right? Plus minus.
Yes, Dylan was also number
Yeah.
2.
So like the backups, this was a kind of a throwback. It felt like that backup 5 group has been struggling a little bit. Man, they cured a lot of ills and really started that run in the first half. And there were like 4 or 5 straight possessions when the game was really tight early. I mean, it was just turnover, 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 steal. Getting out on the fast break. And it was great to see. It honestly felt like it had been a little while since we had seen that backup group really accelerate, take a big lead, and they did that tonight.
And I think some of that has to do with Aiden finally setting into what his role is going to be as the backup point guard. I mean, you see another perfect night from him, 3 assists, 0 turnovers, doing his job as the ball mover. We don't need him to be a guy that's going to come in and shoot the ball 10 times a game. We saw some of that early in SEC play, and it was clear that as the competition has stepped up, Aiden's offensive ability in terms of scoring has not necessarily been there. But what has been consistent this entire year is his ability to get other guys involved and take care of the ball as our point guard.
I'm going to be consistent and say that you're right, and he needs to be able to do all those things. I think we're going to need him as a shooter. So as we wind down this season, especially as we get into some of these tournament situations, I'm really hoping. I mean, at this point, I feel like I'm one of the last Aiden stands out there, trying to hold the rope. But I need him to hit some threes, man. I need him
Yeah,
to hit some threes the next couple
listen,
weeks.
Matt, I want to respect that, and I want to respect Aiden as a 3 point shooter. I really do. But we got a couple of guys that are 6'8" and taller that went 9 of 12 from the 3 point line tonight. Let's get to the meat of this MVP discussion. I don't know if you all heard me out there in the podcast universe, in the YouTube universe, but our 4 and our 5 went 9 of 12 from 3 land tonight. Holy cow. No wonder we ran away with this one.
Yeah, I mean, classic. What they combined for 50 against Alabama in the big
Yep.
win. They combined for 44. I think Broom barely scored in the first half. He did a lot of his damage in the second half. But man, you talk about stretching the floor and the 5-out offense. Man, it is hard to guard when you're 4 and 5. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. 9 of 12, 75% from three. We shot 60% from three as a team, Ben. 60%.
Wow.
Um,
And part of that came from our aggressive rebounding. So shout out Chris Moore. Honestly, shout out Lior Berman. We get some valuable Lior minutes in that first half there. We had guys tonight, you could just tell there have been a couple of games this season where other teams have wanted it worse than we have. And this is a great opportunity to see a team come into our stadium with a higher number than us, with a
yeah.
better record, with a better position in the SEC title race. And we had the want to tonight. Our offensive rebounding game was excellent. I've got to go back to the ESPN stat sheet because I don't know if we have the full offensive rebounds
They,
breakdown. Oh
they
no, we
they
do.
beat us pretty bad on the offensive glass, but it did feel like early on,
But when it mattered was early on.
right, right. Early on, we were getting a bunch of offensive rebounds, and you're right. Chris had a few. And
And
I
when
mean,
you're shooting
honestly,
like we do, when your first look is there, you're not going to have the opportunities
when
for
you shoot
offensive rebounds.
61% from the field, you don't get a lot of offensive rebounding chances. So you're right, math. Pretty amazing. And just to zero in, Janai has continued to round out his game. if you want some entertainment, go back to listen to some of our old podcasts where we talked about debating whether Janai should ever shoot threes ever again or he should be allowed to. That's fun, good
Whoa,
podcasting
whoa,
there.
whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Um,
There's one podcaster in this group that said that. Ryan Stormer Norman, he was possibly going to join us tonight.
I thought
Unfortunately, he was able to
Jackson
be
was
at the game.
Jackson was always on the fence about that too. He's like, I don't know if he,
Jackson, no. Jackson was very anti Janai shooting threes,
yeah,
especially when he went that cold streak and out of conference.
yeah. So shout out Jackson. We're calling Beetlejuice again here. But yeah, Jalen, I mean, Jalen missed his first shot. And it's funny because I'm such a Jalen homer that I'm like, I just feel like people are gonna be all over Jalen. He had a quiet game last game. And then after that, he went 8 for 10 the rest of the way. Yeah, I think he hit 5 of his first 6 threes, hit 16 in the first half. He has the most casual, like 15 to 20 point halves. It's remarkable. He does it
Yeah, we
efficiently. It's amazing.
we looked up at the 10-minute mark and he already had 10 points. And you're right. There might have been some people who don't know ball who would have gotten on Jalen for missing that first shot. But do you remember what it was? It was a left-handed hook inside of the box right at the basket.
His
And one of the
shot.
things that we were begging for in the offseason was Jalen, get aggressive, go inside. That hook shot, when it starts to fall, is unblockable. There's no way for anybody to guard that on a guy that's 6'8" and has the hops that we know that Jalen does. It was a good shot. And it bared out being a good shot because you saw how frequently it fell throughout the rest of this game.
How would
And
you pronounce? Do you have the YouTube up?
I do, yeah.
How would you, in your expertise, Ben, pronounce the name with the S, who had three comments?
I'm going with Sonichu, but I could be wrong. So Sonichu, if you say you're a next day podcast listener, write in, let us know how wrong we got your YouTube name. But we appreciate you being here.
Mr. Beautiful makes a great point. The weak fans kind of scared after the Florida game. It's hard, and Jackson and I kind of figured this out real time a couple years ago when we were doing the pod. Like when you're on the roller coaster in this grind of a college basketball season, it is so easy. And part of it as fans, right, is we get wrapped up in these results and we want to over extrapolate them. And Ben and I were talking about before we came on, as much as we don't want to overreact to the loss in Florida, which Ben again was all over all year about that game. This one too. Alabama did this to South Carolina. You mentioned that today. I'm glad we were able to match and exceed
Well,
that.
Alabama didn't quite do this.
Well, but they blew
Alabama
them
won
out.
that game by 19, I think, or
They blew them
21.
out, and we did too by a
Yeah.
lot more. But hey, look, it does feel now. And again, my goal in this is, hey, can we stay in the race? And we're still in the race. And that's if we can hold serve at home, which would mean wins over Kentucky, which would mean wins over Georgia and Mississippi State, right? I believe.
Yeah,
Um,
Mississippi State, a revenge game.
those are ones we need to get. And then Tennessee's gonna be
I was
hard.
close. I was close, by the way. It's Sonichu.
Sonichu, okay. Shout out
Sonichu.
Sonichu. Way to be with us. Um, I, to me, Jalen's the MVP. He only had 2 rebounds, 0 turnovers for him and Janai, by the way. Jalen continues to, I guess Denver technically played 1 more minute because he played some point guard in the second half. But Jalen continues to play the most minutes, be the most efficient. He was the better shooter efficiency wise tonight compared to Janai struggled a little bit early. He missed, I think 4 or 5 of his first shots. And then he got super hot, which to have Janai, I think one of the most underrated parts about his game is, man, he has a lot of halves like that just don't go his way. And it just never seems to phase him like Jalen, honestly, at times, right? He kind of can when things aren't quite, it's not one of his nights. It sometimes feels like it's hard to come through that, man. Janai continues to do that really well. And they both played great, and they're
It
both
seemed
our 2 best players, and our front court's amazing. We need them to be great for us to go where we want to go. And it was great to see. I lean Jalen. You have any thoughts?
I mean, I lean Jalen because again, what we're about on this podcast is do you get the points when it matters? And Jalen Williams was so active in that first half. He was so aggressive. Janai really did a lot of his damage in that second half. And we've got to give him a lot of credit because one of the tough things about Janai is he's not an elite defender. We were spoiled with an elite defender in Walker Kessler at center. And Janai, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say he's an elite defender because I think some of the stats might back that up. He continues to be pretty high up in the nation in blocks and in rebounds. He's definitely near the top of the SEC and has been for both years. But when you see him in the one-on-one, there are a lot of occasions where some of these bigger guys can go at him and score, and they can get their buckets inside. But I think the big difference for Janai this year is he's decided that like what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay out of foul trouble. If you score on me, well, great. I'm going to go back down on the other end and I'm going to get those points back. And that was really what we saw in the second half. But even more than that, we saw a lot more of what you were talking about with that 5 out. We saw Janai rotating to the outside when we had guys driving, find his position, and get a shot up. Now, I don't think Janai is going to go 4 or 5 from 3 point land every game, but he has gone 1 of 2. He's gone 2 of 3 quite consistently. So continuing to make that a part of his game, it makes him more enticing for NBA scouts, but it just makes us a better team because when he's hitting from outside, it's so much easier to get him in those one-on-one situations. And we heard Bruce talk about going into this game. South Carolina doesn't play a lot of one-on-one, or South Carolina doesn't double inside a lot. They do play a lot of one-on-one. And that was what we fed early. We fed Janai with his match inside, trying to get him those easy looks. And he struggled a little bit, but the rest of the team picked him up. They rebounded hard off those misses. That's the thing we've been really wanting this year.
You say, and I can't believe this. This is amazing. Um, Janai Broom is now shooting almost 39% from three on the year. So he was cold. He's been hot for a while now, is what that means. He now, granted, he doesn't take as many threes as some of our other guys, but like he is third on our team. So Jalen is at a sizzling 42.6% from three, which is insane. Chad Baker
He
was ours.
and he was at 39. He was at 39 before this game. So that's not an aberration. Jalen Williams has been shooting
Yeah,
great from three all year.
he's been our most consistent 3-point shooter all year. I think that's fair. Trey's been up there. Trey's still at 38. Chad Baker Mazar's at 40.3. Denver's at 36.3. Those are all great numbers. And like, but for Janai to be that, it's crazy. It's crazy. He's 30 up to
At
39%.
at 6'11", it's just another weapon. And if we can continue to do what we did tonight, which is rotate him out to the wing when the first look is not there, I think one of the interesting things about this matchup is South Carolina is a shot clock bleeding team. Particularly on offense, they want to run the shot clock down as long as they can, but it's the same way on defense. They'll let you take a tough shot. They'll live with that again and again and again. So if you want to take an early shot with a guy in your face that's a little bit open around the outside, they're going to live with that. And I think we did a better job, particularly in the first half, of moving the ball and actually finding a shot that we wanted to take. But it was even more evident in that second half when South Carolina was kind of in panic mode that we were really able to just shoot the ball from anywhere on that floor and anybody that had it in their hands.
Yeah, yeah. The team confidence was great to see, especially after a bad kind of performance and a tough loss, kind of first blowout of the year, really. Um, Good to see them bounce back at home in a big game, in a big spot, and defend home court. Um, you know, I did want to put. I mentioned Dylan earlier. Dylan was all over the place in this game. He was 4 for 4 at the line, Ben. First of all, but 5 assists from Dylan Cardwell. Is this a correct in 15 minutes? If that's
Yeah,
correct, that's incredible.
a lot of that had to do with Dylan's offensive rebounds that then
Yeah.
turned into. Wait, hang on. He's credited with 0 rebounds. That can't be right.
I, we need some.
Maybe it's
Maybe it's five
maybe it's
rebounds.
tip outs that maybe it's tip outs that turned into that. I'm not sure if that stat sheet is entirely correct, but we're gonna have
It
to
may not
check
be.
on that. But no, you're right. We got valuable Dylan Cardwell minutes tonight. And again, like he's one of those guys that's like KD. A lot of times when he gets the ball inside, if he doesn't draw a foul, he's not going to make the basket. And he tends to do his damage at the foul line. But overall, you can't say enough about this team shooting. They shot 61% from the floor, 60% from three, but they were 17 of 19 from the charity stripe. And that doesn't do a lot for you in a game that you're going to win by 40. But Auburn's free throw shooting is such a vast improvement over last year that if we find ourselves in that situation, I feel like we can win a free throw competition. I mean, we definitely had to do that a little bit in that second half against Alabama.
You wanna take a guess at our season free throw shooting percentage as a team right now?
I think we are now closing in on 78. I think we're at 77. I'm going to give us 77 point something.
76, but that's great. I'm through as a
Ooh,
team. 76 is pretty amazing. Um,
that's incredible.
Good team win. I thought our offense was great. I thought we defended well.
But Matt,
There's a lot of
we haven't crowned them officially yet. So I
I
think it's time
crowned
we
Jalen.
crown the MVP.
Yeah, let's crown
Yeah,
him.
I think it's no question. I think when you look at the impact all over the floor, when you look at the impact in the first half when the game was still in doubt, say his name one more time.
Jalen Williams, my
Jalen
guy,
Williams,
MVP.
MVP once again.
I ride the roller coaster with you, Jalen. I'm here with you.
Well, and
To be
it's not so much just that. Like again, basketball is a team sport, but we said it last year going into SEC play. This team was going to go how Wendell Green Jr. goes. This team is going to go how Jalen Williams goes. And we said it on
prophetic.
socials today. We said it's a big game. Who are we going to get? Are we going to get Ghost Jalen or are we going to get Superman? And good
Which
grief, we
I
got
would argue that there were
Superman
a lot of
tonight.
ghosts on Saturday. There were a lot of ghosts on Saturday.
But who's the ghost that is most indispensable to this team? Janai Broom is our
I
best player.
guess it's Jalen. I just think it's funny that
It's Jalen. Yeah, because we've done it without Janai. We've had a couple of games where and you could argue that we had to do it tonight without Janai. Janai was not particularly effective early, but Jalen Williams went in there and took over this game and did not take no for an answer short at the rim. He missed his first shot and then he just kept going at it, and that
yeah.
was the difference tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a classic performance, honestly. He did a little bit of everything. There was some mid-range in there. There was some inside play. There was obviously all the threes, hit his free throws, And I thought he played really, really well on the defensive end. Our scout was great against South Carolina. We switched really well after the first few possessions in terms of this was a great matchup for us in a way because we could really switch everything and feel really comfortable with our big guys on the perimeter defending in our traditional man-to-man. And then, yeah, it was just a really good, obviously, when you win by 40 and when you score 50 plus in both halves of a game against the number 11 team in the country, it's a good night. But needless to say, the coaches and the players did a great job of flushing Saturday, getting back to work. And I think that speaks to, two things about Ryan, Storm, and Norman. Ryan was on that, he said that in our preseason or maybe in the first two games about making that parallel with Wendell Green Jr. Like, is Jalen Williams the guy this year that is the key cog that we go as he goes? And then he also, what was my point? I had a point there. I was going to shout out Ryan again because he said something. Yeah, never mind. Good podcast.
Ryan continues to be a guy that understands the matchups. And
Yeah.
we got some folks in the chat want to talk about BJ Mack. And BJ Mack was our player to watch in this game because you're right. He is one of those freaks at 6'8", 220, somewhere in the 230-pound range. He's a fifth-year senior, transfer from Wofford, who played a bunch of college basketball prior and is probably playing the best basketball of his career. He certainly played a great game tonight. We knew Michi Johnson was great. Miles Stute was a transfer that left Vanderbilt this year. He was a guy that we wanted as well that decided to go and join South Carolina. And Lamont Paris has done a fantastic job of knitting together a team of guys that buy in and play hard. They ran into a buzzsaw of an environment tonight, but they're a tricky matchup for a lot of teams because just like you were saying, they're big across the floor. And a lot of folks and a lot of teams across the SEC don't really know how to handle that. But I think we did a really great job of forcing them to go through only a couple of guys tonight. We forced them to go through Michi and we forced them to go through BJ. And it just makes a difference.
It does. By the way, I want to zoom out a little bit, unless you have other player notes, because I think it's important to put some of
I
this
just
in
have
context.
one.
Okay.
I just have one. Because we continue to see it. And Mr. Beautiful in the chat has pointed it out to remind us Chaney Johnson's development. Ryan Storm and Norman was also on Chaney Johnson coming out of the offseason, that he was going to be an important player for us. And it hasn't quite been the rocket ship that Chad Baker Mazzara has been. But the last couple of weeks, Chaney Johnson has steadily improved to giving us valuable offensive minutes when Jalen Williams is off the floor. And that is
Well, and just
huge.
a great little post up move, just a good cut when we ran. They tried to trap CBM in the corner, and Dylan was rolling to the basket. So Chaney's guy, understandably, kind of leaves Chaney because he's just not. And it was a good cut to the basket, and then a dunk off that. just the solid fundamental plays. Like we don't need anything crazy from him. But you're right. He is finding his lane, I think, a little bit. And like we keep saying, anything from Lior, Lior, Cheney, and Dylan give you 16 points. That's a nice little added bonus.
Found treasure, baby. Found treasure.
Yeah. So first of all, this was the number one scoring defense in the SEC that we just put up 101 on. I just wanted to point that out. So we
Say it
shot
again. Say it
um,
again.
number
101.
101 on the number one scoring defense. We talked about 60% from three. We talked about 89% from the line. Or if we haven't been, I'll just give you a moment just to marinate in that 17 for 19 from the line, which is incredible. But John Rothstein, shout out. We love John Rothstein. Would love to have him on the pod. If anybody has any connections, let's make it happen. He pointed out he was tweeting about this game specifically this morning and said, "Hey, like South Carolina is the best team in the SEC at not turning the ball over. And how are they going to handle the jungle, the Auburn pressure defense?" And I think I mean, yeah, we shot the
Badly.
lights out, but 25 points off 13 turnovers from them. We turned their turnovers into points. We got the Flying Tigers going, and we only turned it over 7 times. They only had 8 points off. I think that's huge. And then the other one I would point out in terms of the team stats, I said 22 to 5 assists, which is amazing. We won the block party, we won the steals, but Ben, 39 to 1 in bench points. 39 to 1. We love it. The depth.
Yes, and the depth from all 11 players, because I'll say it again, we got some good Lior minutes tonight, and they weren't necessarily about his offense. It was about his defense. And that's where you see the hustle really matter. The guys going after the rebounds, guys forcing steals, forcing those turnovers with sloppy balls. And you see that happen in a team that through about the first 30 minutes of this game, South Carolina only played 7 guys. We played our 11 and it mattered. It mattered because we were fresh, we were aggressive, and we went after that basketball.
Can you imagine how annoying it would be to be down 30 on the road and bringing the ball up and Katie Johnson is just like staring at you right in your grill? Do you know how annoying that would be if you were, one of these South Carolina players? Like it
Oh,
really is. It's wild
insane.
watching our depth late in the second half when we're killing a team. It's crazy to see because Bruce always has his guys playing kind of frenetic, right? They tend to always play super hard. You'll hear national guys talk about they'll marvel at it when they watch college basketball, and then they come to Auburn like, man, this team just plays hard. They may not always be pretty, they may not always hit shots, they're gonna play their tails off. And I just thought there was just a moment where I felt so bad for this little South Carolina guard trying to bring the ball up, and KD's just all over him.
I mean, you think when you're down 30, you expect a team to sit back and a little bit softer of a man, let you bring it, let you get into your half court. No, sir. No, sir. But again, that to me is the masterful nature of Bruce Pearl and this coaching staff. Obviously, we've had a couple of games where things have not quite gone right and we've struggled and things have been challenging. But if you've ever doubted this coaching staff, think about what it took to go from losing on the road in Gainesville, from once again, we took a really good team down there to break a nearly 30-year streak of losing and couldn't get over the hump. And in fact, laid a massive egg. Well, now you got to turn around. You got to come home on a Wednesday night on a late tip and play against the top team in the SEC. And he had them playing like this was our Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from start to finish, the energy was high, the play was aggressive, the roles were assignment based, and you could just tell everybody knew what the game plan was. I don't feel bad for South Carolina. I don't feel
Yeah,
bad for them at all having to look at that in the face. Because you know what? I think we're a better basketball team there. I think that South Carolina as a program has done amazing this year and they've made some
yeah,
amazing progress. But we're a better basketball team than them. And I think
yeah.
we showed it tonight.
Ryan made a great point. I was going crazy about the spread. I was like, I couldn't believe we're 12-point favorites. You posted that on socials of the ESPN predictive graphics, which sometimes analytics are good. I mean, like we were considered the better team. This was a quad two game because they're not in the top 30. I know they're ranked in the polls, but in the metrics, they're a mid 40s, low 40. You mentioned their out of conference schedule not being super great, and that's part of that. But still a great win. I don't think we should cheapen it, but I agree with you. This was a game that Auburn should win and should defend home court. But to see them do it this way was pretty impressive. And shout out to Jalen Harper for getting us to 100 points. Jared's brother. We love the heart. He took a mid-range jump shot that he missed. I think he got fouled on it, and they didn't call it. where he looked exactly like Jared Harper, and it was a great moment for me at the end of this game. So great to get the walk-ons in, great to get to 100 points. The students got gooey fries because they missed the 2 free throws again late. Life is good. Life is good on the Plains in Neville.
And again, don't take this for granted because you're right. It was a quad 2 game. They were considered inferior competition. But I want to go back to something that I have said multiple times in our season preview podcast and our SEC podcast. It doesn't matter who comes out of the gate hot because the college basketball season is a long one. You got to travel a lot, you got to play a lot of games. It matters when you get hot. And a win like this late in the conference race, when you've still got a shot to keep climbing that ladder, it matters. It matters that we're playing our best basketball right now.
Oh, and it matters in all the way. I mean, we're number 4 in KenPom. We're considered a 3 or 4 seed in the NCAA tournament right now, probably depending on where you look. We're still playing for that top 4, the double bye in the conference tournament. There's all these competing interests. We're obviously still ring chasing and all that. It's a big win. I mean,
I think we're pretty firmly in the top 4 now. A&M had a head scratching loss to Vanderbilt after they did us a favor and beat Tennessee. So, Matt, are we ready to take a little look around the league and kind of see where we're at?
What was I gonna say? I feel like I want to make sure I got all my fun key points here. I think we did. I'm pretty yeah. Let's zoom out and let's take a look at what's
So
going
Auburn
on.
is currently half the game back from Alabama. Alabama's on their bye this week, so they're 9-2. Auburn's got a tough game on Saturday, and Alabama will also play on Saturday. So there's the potential this week, if things go right, to move into a tie for first place. What will be a 3-way tie if South Carolina also wins. So at the top of the league, Alabama's sitting at 9-2. Auburn and South Carolina are both tied for second at 9-3. Tennessee has already had their bye, so they are currently 8-3, but the highest ranked SEC team at number 8. And in a tie for fifth place behind them is Florida and Kentucky at 7-4.
Yeah, I mean that's only a game and a half behind us. So if we don't beat Kentucky, if we beat Kentucky, we'll feel a little better about that top 4. But
Yeah.
I don't
But
know. Still got work to do.
behind them is A&M at 6-5, and then after that, every other SEC team. The bottom half is all below 500 in conference play. So Ole Miss, who we don't see again, is at 7th at 5-6. Mississippi State is tied with them, also 5-6. So we're going to see Mississippi State. We're going to see Georgia twice, who is 4-7 in league play, and then we're going to see Missouri, who is currently dwelling in the basement of the SEC at 0-11. They do not have an SEC win yet.
And that's one of our 3 road games left. So I mean, you hope that doesn't bite you. You hope you go in there and win. And then Georgia is looking a little better. I mean, they've been better this year, and I think they're dangerous. And having to play
They're
them
not a
twice,
bad team, especially at home.
yeah. So that'll be one to watch. We know going into Knoxville is going to be tough, but South Carolina went in and beat them. So I mean,
And let's not get ahead of ourselves. We got a tough one coming in on Saturday with Kentucky. If we can win that game, that puts us 2 games up on them, which would be absolutely huge. But if we're gonna get some, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. This is the big week, right? Like especially coming off that loss. So before today is like, okay, like we're at home. Can we finish the home slate undefeated? So it's Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Georgia. Can we do that? And if we do that, I think we can hang around in the race. You hope Alabama's going to drop 1, 2, 3 more. I mean, we can dream. We want them to. And
if you want, we can take a look at Alabama's schedule here.
Yeah,
let's on Saturday, they got a tough one. They got A&M at home. And then next week, they have Florida at home, which, Florida's fighting for their tournament lives. A win on the road at Alabama would all but solidify them in my mind as an NCAA tournament team. They got to go on the road to Kentucky the week after, or the Saturday after. Then they're on the road again at Ole Miss. They have a 2-week road stretch to end February. And then in March, they have Tennessee at home. Does not get any easier. They've got to go to Gainesville, which has been an absolute snake pit for everyone in the SEC. And then they finish their season with Arkansas coming to Coleman Coliseum. And you got to think at that point, Arkansas is not going to be playing for much but pride. And a win over Alabama to deny them an SEC championship could, in a lot of ways, make Arkansas a season. So Alabama has some opportunities to lose if we can take care of business.
Yeah. We just got to win as many as we can. Obviously, that's the key, and stay within, if you're a game behind Alabama on the last day of the season, you've got a chance, like you said. I mean, that's the way you have to look at it. So can we defend home court? And obviously that starts with Kentucky, who has been really kind of hot and cold this year. They obviously have a ton of talent. We have a lot of experience playing them in Neville. It feels like we get to play them in Neville a lot, which is great. I'm not complaining. And Rupp has been like Gainesville for us, actually worse.
I think
Worse.
they put up a graphic this year that we're 5-5 in our last 10 games against Kentucky.
Yeah, which is
So
amazing. So big one coming up. It honestly felt like, did you feel like Neville was just a little, it's Valentine's Day. It's kind of a weird, like Neville didn't even feel at full tilt tonight. And it
no,
was,
when we got there at tip, I did see some empty seats, which was a little disappointing for a game that's this big. But you're right. It's Valentine's Day. You got to take somebody out for dinner, and I guarantee you the reservations for in Auburn, Alabama, around 8 p.m. were probably wide open.
well, I just think it's gonna be ramped up, and Kentucky can make their jokes about how that's for Kentucky. And I love that our social media team at Auburn has been leaning into that because we've had lines out the door for all these other games. And when Bronny was, people called it the Bronny effect when we hosted USC. And it's like y'all aren't paying attention.
Oh,
But
I'm sorry.
Saturday's gonna be ramped up.
I got to take a moment and look at where USC is at because they are having a bad year.
Not great. Most of our non-conference opponents, unfortunately, did not pan out.
Yeah, Indiana's had a chance to win a couple of games, but fun fact about the Pac-12: Arizona, who is one of only two teams that has a better home record than Auburn over the last 3 years, is the only ranked team in the Pac-12. USC is currently 11th in the Pac-12. They're 3-10 in conference and 9-15 overall, with a couple of five-star recruits and Boogie Ellis as one of the top transfer players they got a couple of years ago. Rough.
I'm glad you mentioned the home thing. I mean, we have basically the best record in the country at home over the last 3 years. It's minor. We probably have one less
Facts.
home win than Arizona and Kansas. I mean that. I know we brag on this stuff all the time, but you just have to step back. It's insane. We had the best SEC, best winning record, home record of anybody in the SEC the last 3 years. And it's not like
Including Kentucky, who has played, I think, 6 more games than us at home.
we were great last year. We're good. And, even so, it's truly remarkable. And if we can find a way to beat Kentucky and then beat Georgia and Mississippi State and have another undefeated home season, man, you just just don't take it for granted. This is special stuff. And I'm already, with only 3 weeks left in the season, 6 games for us. We're getting
Wow.
close to that time of March. We're not too far away.
Yeah, Matt, let's talk for just a moment about our 20th win of the season. As a
Ah,
student, how many 20 win seasons did you see?
I was there for 6 basketball seasons. We had 20 wins once.
Zero over here. Bagel bites between 2008 and 2012. But Matt, let's think about how many 20 win seasons we've seen as a podcast.
3 for 3. Three for
Three for
three.
three.
And I mean it's not the best barometer, but it's certainly a barometer. If you go historically in college basketball, if you win 20 and you're in a good league like the SEC now is, I mean that's tournament stuff. So what are we 9-3 now? We guaranteed 500 record in the SEC bare minimum. We're gonna have a winning
We're
record.
guaranteed better. We're guaranteed better. 8-8's five is 500, right?
Now we go. It's 18, so
Oh, it's
it's
18. Okay.
so
Right.
we're there, but one more win puts us winning the SEC record. And these things, people laugh because we're a 3 seed, we're number 4 in Ken Palm. Well, again, if you've been around this, like a lot of you have, like 20 win seasons matter. Just like I think one of the next steps for this program is getting to Sweet 16s more often. Like that's a big thing. We've
Second weekend.
seen what it's done for Arkansas, right? The last three
Yeah.
years being in the second weekend. And we're putting
And you
ourselves in good position to kind of, if you're one of those top 4 seeds in a region, you've got a good shot to get there.
Yeah, and you hear a lot of the national media talk about second weekend teams.
Yeah.
Second weekend teams, programs like Virginia, programs like Baylor, programs like Kansas, programs even like Arizona, who hasn't been as great lately, but teams that get to that second weekend consistently are the teams that are good. And you're going to hear this podcast shift a little bit more into focusing on the postseason once we're no longer ring chasing, but we're in an exciting part of the year.
We're still
Matt
ring
talks,
chasing, Ben.
yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah.
still ring chasing.
Mac talks about this all the time. College basketball is a rare sport. You have three championship seasons. You have the regular season, you have the conference tournament, and then you have what they call, for a reason, March Madness. So
And,
the regular season is special because being able to be one of the best teams in your conference over the course of 32 games is
yeah,
absolutely insane.
yeah.
And then going into win your conference tournament where you can have a team get really hot and win 4 games in 4 days. We've seen it. We've been a part of it.
Hmm.
It's not unheard of. Teams can turn it on and steal a conference tournament title. And then of course there's March Madness where you never know what to expect. You never know who's going to emerge. So for right now, what we're focused on is this SEC regular season. What is it going to take for us to win a conference title over the course of these last 6 games?
Yeah, probably gonna have to go 5-1, right? I mean, at least
At least five and
if we had to
one.
guess, probably 5-1. I mean,
Yeah.
so you guys take them one at a time. Defend home court. Kentucky should be motivation enough. I know our guys will be ready to go. I don't think Cal and Bruce like each other at all. I think that's a fun, like, little coaching rivalry. I really think they don't. I think there's a lot of bitterness there. It's gonna be fun, and I'm excited. I can't wait to watch it. And
Yeah.
then
So
yeah,
we'll see all of you live Saturday after the Kentucky game right here at the Virtual Tumors Corner on the Jungle Auburn podcast.
War Eagle, everybody.
War Eagle. Woo.
Fun win, everybody. Thanks for everybody in the YouTube chat.
Matt, by the
A
way,
lot of
we're not announcing your news, right?
no.
Okay. So then we'll talk about my news, which is that Auburn is having beautiful weather right now. New York City blizzarded out, man.
Your
We got
blizzard?
we got 6.5 inches of snow yesterday.
No way.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it all came in an afternoon, which was great because like the first half of the day was a snowstorm, and then after that the sun came out and it was beautiful. Everybody was making giant snowmen. It was a good time.
It's amazing. We had a weird 6-inch, 7-inch snow down here a few weeks ago, and it was like apocalyptic. It's crazy.
Yeah,
We
Matt,
don't
are you
handle
gonna
it
try to
well.
get to? Are you gonna try to get to any SEC tournament games this year?
Hope so. I mean, I've kept the door open for Tennessee in Knoxville, but it's like a Wednesday night. I don't know if I can get there or not. It's kind of an early start. It's like a six
Well, and
central start,
Knoxville's like a 2 hour drive for you, isn't it?
2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I might potentially have an in to go to the last regular season game in Auburn, so that's a possibility.
Ooh.
But I don't know yet. And then
YouTube fans, if you haven't had a chance, go back and listen to the South Carolina game in 2021. Matt and Jackson both made it live to the arena to
it was
watch Auburn
glorious.
win a regular season SEC championship. That episode was incredible. Do it all, Dylan showed up, made a surprise appearance.
Yeah, we were on Tumor's Corner. We watched them cut down the nets, which I mean,
Oh,
just I, my childhood self was just that was an amazing day. We had so much fun with that, and who knows, maybe we need to.
well, we didn't get ahead of ourselves. We didn't get ahead of ourselves. Just go back and live in that moment.
I'm
If
just
you haven't
saying,
listened to that
our last
episode,
game's at home. If we're playing for a title, can we fly Ben Young to Auburn, Alabama on March 9th? I don't know. We'll see.
listen. Well, here's the thing: all the projections keep putting us away from the East Coast, which I get.
Yeah.
But I think no matter what, now that we're kind of out of danger of falling into that 7-8 seed line, um, which knock on wood, unless the wheels fall off,
Yeah.
that was our chance to get to Brooklyn because Brooklyn's going to host a 1 versus 16, and it's going to host an 8 versus 9 in that first round. And then the next closest game for me would be whatever Sweet 16 East matchup is in Boston. So,
Well, and just keep in mind, they kind of switched it a few years ago. I want to say there's 8 sites, so all those like Brooklyn will have 4 games in the first round.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they'll have. Are they both 116 8-9s, or are they?
I think that's right because I think the South and the East both play there, and it's both like the really good
Okay.
teams and the very mediocre teams. And unfortunately, Auburn's a very good team this year. So
But yes, to answer your question, SEC tournament. If anybody's on here still listening, if you're in Nashville, hit me up because I'll be around. And I always take a wait and see approach. It kind of depends if you're a local. Uh, do you get bracketed with Kentucky or not? If you get bracketed outside of Kentucky, it's a usually a very affordable ticket until the semifinals and championship. So that's something that's I'll be watching out for. We'll see if I show up at Bridgestone. That's always a fun event. If you haven't been, I encourage you to do it. It's a great way to spend a few days in Nashville and hang out. A lot of good
Hey,
basketball.
Pocket Watch says he wants us to do a transfer portal news for the show. So Storm and Norman, we gotta get him in here. Ryan Norman is such a great host for analyzing recruiting, analyzing transfer portal. He pops up in our chat all the time, letting us know like in the off season he called Denver Jones to Auburn way sooner than anybody else, which is amazing.
Canoe Man's coming to SEC tournament, so we got to make that
Ooh,
connection happen.
uh oh.
Let's get some meet and greets.
Matt, if you're gonna go to the SEC tournament, I'm gonna send you some of those mics that Jackson and I had for the Barclays Center Legends Classic.
Shout out to those episodes. Those were hilarious. I
But on
had
the
so
street,
much
it was a good
fun.
time.
I had so much fun watching those. Those were so good.
You and Ryan did
Um,
too. All right,
yeah,
man. I won't keep you up all night. Thanks for jumping in with me. I appreciate not having to do the show by myself, and I love podcasting a win.
yeah, I was. Yeah, absolutely.